Good to see you here. I'm Dave Rosner. I'm the CMO of Audigent. Great to be at Art Basel to have the excuse to get to go for the first time. I've been asking everyone who lives in Miami what the best things to do are, and everyone's recommended the Design Expo. Only takes about a half an hour, right across the street from the convention center. I would recommend it as long as you're here. So good to have the excuse to be here. It looks like everyone is at the convention center. Quick background on Audigent. We're in the programmatic space, identity, curation, and activation. And today we're going to be talking about cookies, but unlike any other programmatic conversation that we usually have, and we have a lot, they are not third-party cookies. They're actually melt-in-your-mouth cookies. So with that, I am very excited to get to speak to Matthew Jung, the CEO of Last Crumb. And
when are you handing out the cookies?
You got to make it all the way to the end of the night for the cookies.
I'm gonna go get some people in here to collect the cookies.
Matthew's a serial entrepreneur. He's worked with incubators. He's worked in large corporate organizations. This is one of the first times you've actually come into a company as a CEO versus started it. So before we talk about Last Crumb, let's just talk about you. Tell us a little bit about your career journey up until Last Crumb.
Yeah, so I started my career when I was 18, I guess. I started a surf company. We made surfboards and we made apparel. We sold all over the world. We did licensing deals with Uniqlo.
What was it called?
It's called Wellen.
This is called
Wellen.
Wellen.
Yeah, Wellen. And we ended up selling the IP in the company to a brand called Huckberry, which is a big men's online retailer. And so it still lives on.
Right. I get their ads for Axes all the time.
You should buy one. And so like we made stuff like this with like vintage sailcloth in Los Angeles. And then after that, launched a men's basics line that we sold in places like American Rag and Atrium in New York. And then worked on a project for Mammoth Mountain, building the ski industry's first on-mountain co-working space and subscription season pass that was really all about like building density of entrepreneurs to drive like midweek visits and kind of for the town. And yeah, so kind of dabbled in a lot of different things for the last 15 years leading up to Last Crumb.
So perfect. So let's talk about Last Crumb, the cookie company. Now, someone was telling me that you guys have a mission to put the Girl Scouts of America out of business. Is that right?
They're done. I'm totally kidding. No, we're definitely a little bit of a different product than the Girl Scouts.
So what makes Last Crumb cookies different?
When we built the brand, we really focused on like three key pillars of one, an unparalleled customer experience. We're a D2C brand, so we ship our cookies all over the United States, and that's really difficult to, one, assure freshness, but also like make it unique, because you don't want to just get like a donut box with a bunch of cookies in it that have like bounced around. How could we do something that no one had seen before, or at least was like a variation that like felt like very unique? The second was like the brand. We aimed to build like a luxury cookie brand, which is kind of a weird thought, but the idea that you have these like amazing brands like Milk Bar and Levain, and we basically said, hold our beer, we're going to sell a box of cookies for $150, and people are going to love it, and it's going to be really awesome. And so we think about the brand first and foremost, and I bring a lot of my experience from fashion to that. We have kind of seasonality in like the way we do collaborations and things. And then the last is that we have, I think, an unbelievable product that's handmade using unbelievable ingredients that we import from all over the world, and we bake and ship cookies on the same day. So that's like a very unique and difficult thing. We're fully vertical, so we make if someone orders a box of cookies from us, you went on the site and you bought a box, today, we would bake your cookies and then ship it same day, and you would get it 2-day aired or 1 day. So you would basically have cookies that are freshly made within 48 hours, and there's nothing better than a fresh cookie. So we kind of like pay off like an amazing brand story and an amazing customer experience with an unbelievable product, and I think that's unexpected because people expect it to be a little bit of a marketing gimmick, which it isn't.
You went by something pretty quickly that's really interesting, which was about drops. So one of the things that you guys do is you drop cookies that have their own recipe, like someone would drop sneakers, like a Bathing Ape. So talk a little bit about where that came into the mix for you guys.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's probably the thing that people want to talk about the most, especially like early brands, like young companies.
We don't have to talk about that then.
No. I think it's a fascinating thing because drops were a really like smart thing for us to use to drive like hype and awareness and marketing,
Right.
and really build this like flywheel that like, so we don't do any paid, which I know we'll talk about later. But
will.
everything that we've done is all organic, and we felt that drops would be able to like drive that sense of urgency and drive that excitement, and then really like actually solve what was the real problem, in my opinion, which is that we wanted to get everyone's orders so then we could bake them freshly and ship them right away. And it's really difficult to understand, like, to plan a bake with employees if you have no idea how many cookies you're going to make. And we also had no idea how many people were going to want to buy them. So we sold our first box in April of 2021. And I think our first drop was 20 boxes of cookies. And we had 100 people on our email list. And we sold out in like 45 minutes. And then it snowballed. Every single week we'd release cookies.
I'm still doing the math on 100 people and 20 boxes of cookies. So 1 in 5 people on your list bought them.
Oh yeah. Okay. And the conversion that we would see because of that
Can't be more than that because I did the math.
Yeah, it's perfect. Your math is spot on. And so we leveraged that for basically 12 months and continued to do drops, and they got significantly larger than 20 boxes. And we would have thousands and thousands and thousands of people on the website trying to buy 500, 1,000 boxes of cookies. We'd sell out in 1 minute, and it was wild.
I have so many questions. Why would someone go in and buy that many cookies? Were they using that? Were they for personal use? Were they companies using them for
No. I mean like 1,000 customers.
Thousands of customers.
We were selling like, let's say 1,000 boxes. There
Right.
were 5,000 people on the website, and everyone would add to cart, and only a few would get it. We ended up having a math teacher in New Jersey, who ended up building a bot because his friend couldn't get cookies, and we only knew that he did it because the bot worked when we weren't actually doing a drop. There was a product that we had secretly that we were testing, and he bought it, and so I emailed him and said, I don't know what you just did, but you did something that shouldn't have happened. And he's like, I feel really bad. And we ended up having this huge call with him. We ended up sending all of his high school students cookies, and he ended up showing us how he did it, and it was so fun. It was so cool.
So now are you guys protected from the Breaking Bad?
No, build a bot.
Build a bot. Okay, very good. Before we get into your marketing, which is non-traditional, I think it's really interesting that you've come into the company as the CEO right after the founders. How did you scope the role for CEO, and what are your goals coming in? Because it's a different role for you, and that role can take on a lot of different meaning depending on the company and the person.
I would say that's like been one of the challenges of I think the role that I'm in is that I joined the company when they had the early branding done and they had the recipes.
Right.
But we didn't have a business plan. We had no emails. We had 500 followers on Instagram. There's no website. There was no go-to-market strategy. And so in a lot of ways, I was very comfortable because it felt like being a founder without.
Right.
Now that obviously has transitioned a lot as we've added employees and we've grown. And so I really approached it more from the lens of a founder who was trying to build a company and kind of transition it, and I use the word a lot internally, professionalize it in building a team and approaching it like trying to transition my role from founder to CEO, even though technically I was CEO and not the founder at all. And so, yeah, it's been definitely interesting. And I think we have a really strong leadership team now and team of people that work on the brand, and it's been great.
All right, so we're at Brand Innovators. This is the marketing place, although I'm looking around. I don't know everyone here, but let's talk about the marketing. So it's a different model. First, who's the last Crumb customer?
It's evolved, and we've refined it over the last year and a half. Originally, we thought that it would be a gifter, a heavy gifter, someone who wanted to gift the experience to someone else, and that's proved to be true. What we didn't anticipate, and where we've seen so much growth is in people that, similar to Resi actually, love food experiences and are really interested in trying new things and like to bring something when they go to a dinner party or host people.
Right.
And so we have a lot of customers who will buy Last Crumb as kind of the centerpiece activity after they've done a dinner party, or they bring it instead of a bottle of wine to an event, and that is a really interesting thing. And so I think that's where we find the excitement, is when people buy our cookies to just consume as a cookie straight up. I wouldn't say we win there because it's really hard to justify, that's like saying I need a car and you buy a Bentley. It's well, you could buy a Honda. And I think that where we win is where people are really looking for more, and they want the experience, they want to share it, and that I think we do better than anyone.
I was having this conversation about Last Crumb this morning with some folks back at the home office, and it was the experience piece that all of a sudden the light bulb went off, because it was someone who I had introduced our founder to Levan.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, why would it be more than Levan? I was like, well, that's the whole experience. He's like, say no more.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the experience, like the 3 pillars that we built the brand. It's very simple, and we've really, I think, been focused and disciplined in sticking to that strategy. And the experience is great, but the product is also unbelievably good, and it's unbelievably fresh. So it really does pay it off. But we come like swinging. We try to bring all the firepower we can from the marketing and the packaging and everything else.
As long as you said marketing. You started out with 500 fans on Instagram and no cookies.
Yeah.
And now, how have you, since you've joined, how has the company evolved to get the word out without using paid?
So one of the things that drew me to the brand was when they sent me a box of cookies to like test when I was kind of evaluating the role. They sent it in like kind of the shitty shoebox filled with like that weird like frizzy stuff, and so it didn't look like what we have now. And I shared it with a bunch of people, and I wanted to see what the reaction was. And what people did was very interesting to me, and this really informed the strategy that we took for like developing the marketing plan, which is that they started sharing it and they started taking pictures, and it absolutely made no sense to me, because doing fashion, surf brand, or people don't take pictures of your product when it arrives and like share it and then start comparing notes. And that kind of like mini experience really led us to kind of basically say, all right, we have this opportunity with the box arriving, with the unboxing, with the packaging and the stories and the names, and then with the tasting, to create this like tapestry of like, I think, a uniform language that we basically like developed and posted about and kept posting. And then it really informed our customers, so that when they got a box, it was almost like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do when I get a Last Crumb box.
Right.
And so there were like 6 entry points. So early on, when we sold out in like 1 second, people would take pictures of their order confirmation or the picture of their screen saying it was sold out with like crying faces. And we would post those on social media and then do polls like, should we give Susan a box? Yes or no? And like people obviously were like, no, like, F Susan. And so like super fun. And like we really like leaned into that. And like,
right.
And
that's great for everyone except Susan.
It sucked. It was brutal for Susan. And so, but I
hope she never gets a goddamn cookie.
We actually
don't even talk about Susan.
We did have a conversation with people who are doing really bad customer service. Like, people are the worst. You guys all know it. Like when something happens and like it doesn't go their way and UPS messes it up. We actually were trying to figure out if there's a way for us to block people from ever purchasing on our site ever again based on bad reviews. And we used to have like contests where we would say, what should we do? Should we block them forever and like post their like what they would say, not the review, but like if they complained or were just mean. And so that I think is important, because like we did very non-traditional things that I think like honestly most of the brands probably here couldn't really do, which was a little bit brash and a little bit in your face. But then we also had such a simple and clear funnel, that it made it really easy, because when we started, we only did Instagram, and we had a landing page that only captured email addresses, and the only time you knew when we were selling cookies was when we sent you an email. So we didn't do Facebook, we didn't do Twitter, we didn't do TikTok, we did nothing. And we were really focused on using stories to highlight the tapestry of language of how the brand needs to be shared and opened and explored. And then we used the posts as food porn, because that performs exceptionally well, like beautiful shots of like food and interesting things. And what that did was, it was this viral loop where as more people got boxes and then they shared those boxes with their friends, they became the ultimate like ambassadors for us, because people would then DM them and say, oh, are those cookies worth it? Are they good? And people were like, oh my God, they're the best cookies ever. You got to try to get one. And then it led to more people signing up on the social, which then led to more email signups, which led to bigger drops, and it just like fueled. And we've done the exact same thing. The entire history of the company hasn't changed still.
Right.
And so we then added TikTok.
But hold on, before we get to TikTok, how many people are helping manage your socials? Just one, okay.
So until August, we only had one person doing any marketing for the company.
Okay. So they're doing a really good job.
Eddie doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
Or vacation.
No, never taken a day off.
Before we get to TikTok, and I have more questions about Instagram, but you mentioned the unboxing and bringing that to life. And on YouTube, for those who don't know, unboxing is this incredible multi-billion views experience where people get a product and they go through every experience that the brand creates. Actually, it brings to life for marketers a lot of the consumer touch points that you would never see, because once you sell, let's say, a Louis Vuitton bag, you don't know what happens when they have that experience of getting it home and taking it out of the bag and all those things. So it really brought visibility to consumer touch points that a lot of money is spent on. So I want to talk about those unboxings, but we have AV. So if we can, there's a video. Can we run that? Okay, great. Are we going to be in the way?
You're in the way.
I'll go off stage.
Yeah, so that's our marketing strategy.
Do you need to bake the cookies when you get them?
No, but they're much better when you heat them up.
Okay.
So we have a cookie, for example, we have a chocolate lava cake cookie. And it actually has like a chocolate filling in the inside of the cookie, and if you heat it up for 10 seconds and cut it, it is a molten chocolate lava cake.
For the non-traditional channels, and it seems like, are you at the point where you are thinking about how to measure the success of specific, or is there a moment like a drop that you're measuring the success and capturing the data for future? Or if everything's selling out, is that not something you guys are worried about at this point?
No, I mean, we think about data a lot. I think that the way that we try not to get, I think, too granular.
Right.
Because since we're not doing paid, it's very difficult, and we sell in a weird way in the sense that like most of our web traffic comes to the site when the site's not open. It makes it difficult to attribute, but the way we've kind of viewed it is because the funnel's so clear, we're driving impressions on social, which is driving increased following. It's driving increased signups for emails, which then leads to, I think there's an attribution that we have in terms of the percentage of people that basically from email sign up that will buy a box within the first month.
Right.
And so we track it, I think, that way, holistically knowing that the more people that are posting about the boxes, the more content that we have, we see it continue to increase. All channels, and it kind of is like the tide rises.
One more question before we move on from marketing about the packaging and the unboxing. So you did a lot of development from the packaging, what it was originally in the Frizzies, to what it is. What was that process like, and are there any plans to continue to evolve the packaging?
Yeah, so I think something really unique about the brand that I'd never seen before is that from joining the company to now, we've changed the packaging 3 times.
Okay.
Which is really like a pretty huge amount.
How dramatic were the changes? What was V1 versus
subtle.
V3?
So the first box was much more corrugate. The second box we added, it looks much more like an Apple box, so it has rolled edges, it's taped, it has magnets in it that like snap close. Then the third, a lot of the changes were much more on the engineering and the way that the box is manufactured, and less on the design.
Okay.
But we're working on some interesting new forms for next year that are, I think, going to be pretty exciting. And then we look to creative ways, like we do an all-white box with red metallic print for Valentine's Day, and like different kind of ways that we can like engage on an occasion that's authentic but still feels on brand for us, and that's been really great.
So changes to and are you getting signals from social on how the box is performing and how people like it? Is that part of the feedback loop, reviewing the content?
Yeah, we definitely look at the content. So like an example of that is like we get asked a lot for a smaller box, and we get asked a lot about like eco packaging. And so one of the things that we're working on introducing is like we have an interesting like product roadmap that involves a smaller, much more eco-friendly box in the future. Obviously, like our flagship core collection is what we call the 12-pack, isn't going to change because that's the giftable moment. But for people who want to consume, it's kind of ridiculous to have that come every week or every month, and then you're throwing like a lot of packaging away. And that was not our intention. Our intention was kind of viewing this as a gift from the beginning anyways. So I would say we're taking the feedback that we're hearing and saying, all right, we can't obviously change that presentation, but we can create additional products and expand that actually take that into account and like pay it off.
Right, because if you're ordering them every week, that's a lot of boxes.
Yes.
Okay, so now to TikTok. So what's your approach? So you start on Instagram, you move to TikTok. What was the learning curve there, and how are you guys approaching it?
Yeah, so I would say the learning, it took us a second. TikTok is a beast, and it's like trash content is the way I describe it internally, which maybe isn't the right way to do it, but it's just like, it's kind of like garbage. There's not a lot of production value. It's much more based on like UGC. And for us, the reason that we didn't go into it was that it didn't feel authentic to the like high production quality that we were like putting into the content that we were doing on Instagram. And so what we spent about, I don't know, it took us like a month to figure it out. We spent a lot of time figuring out like what was our, I love that you laughed.
Took us about a month to figure out TikTok, and then once we had that down,
then we went.
It was great.
Yeah, but so TikTok, if you went to our TikTok, it's much more like the video that we showed. So we do a lot of reposting of like unboxings. We do this really weird series where we make ice cream sandwiches with our cookies, and then we roll them in like really weird things. So like we did one with vanilla ice cream between 2 chocolate chip cookies, and then we rolled it in nails. So it's like really unappetizing. Or like we rolled one in broken glass, and it's like really edgy. Obviously you wouldn't eat it. And then we do one called...
How many views does the broken glass cookie get?
Like a big video for us will get millions and millions of views.
Okay.
Organically.
And where does that idea come from? Hey, I think we should take some cookies and add some ice cream, and then roll it in broken glass.
I think it's kind of...
And then are you the one who says, this is a great idea, finally?
No.
Wait till somebody eats it.
Yeah. Then we're done. Then we can talk about workers' comp up here. No, actually I'm pretty hands off. So like my whole strategy, I guess to go back to the CEO like role or the founding role, is that I want to hire amazing people and empower them with the resources and the tools so that they can do it. So I actually, from a creative standpoint, unless there's something that seems like really off, nothing has to go across my desk to like approve. Like our social and marketing team have full autonomy to like come up with crazy stuff.
So broken glass happens and no one shows it to you, and it runs, and then they come in and they say, Matt, guess how many views we got? Look at this video.
That's wild.
Is that what?
Yeah. And the other one that we do that's like really interesting is we do like it's like a does it dip, and they take really weird forms and fill them with milk, and they try to dip a cookie in it, but it like doesn't make sense because it'll be like a shot glass, and obviously the cookie just like breaks on all 2 sides.
I don't have to give away.
Yeah, spoiler alert, doesn't fit in a shot glass. And so our kind of approach is, how do we do things that are weird and visually appealing? And so TikTok is much more of that like bite-sized content that draws someone in, and they just like want, as they're death scrolling, and like they say, that's weird. Right. Whereas Instagram is much more beautiful. Like we're really showcasing like the cookies, I think, like art, like a really high-end product. And I think having a really authentic voice that works for the platform that you're marketing, it works so much better. Obviously, it's not rocket science. And so we played with like Twitter for like a month just to see. Right. And it was fun. We got kind of wild, and like it was wild. And we just didn't see the reaction. We didn't see the like community engagement. And I think that for us, it like showed us that like, all right, that's not the platform for us right now. So instead of just like posting stuff or reposting stuff, it's like, let's just not do it at all, because we want to do it really well. And when we find that we do that, I mean, we took our TikTok from 0 followers in 12 months to like over 150,000 with millions and millions of views and likes, and all without any paid, which is really difficult. And we see a really high engagement and a really low drop off.
I think there's probably a much longer story to have about the success of just the social media and the connection that social media creators could get in understanding how you've been able to take social media at no spend and really monetize it. But I think that's a whole nother case study. And I would much rather talk about something much less interesting around data and measurement and analytics. So how do you use the data? Because ultimately in the back end, you have to plan to make how many cookies and figure out the logistics of the business. So how are you using data as a CEO to understand what's working and bring that forward to figure out where you're going next?
Yeah, so we look at our growth rate on all channels. So that has been super important and generally is like a pretty leading indicator for what our email and SMS growth will be. Right. And then what we look at is we don't send a lot of communication, so we're very sparing, which is like, we can talk about it in the context of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, for instance. Like, I mean, we were all just like barraged by like every brand that we've ever signed up for with 15 emails trying to get us to post. We only sent 3 emails over those 4 days and drove a large, I mean, our biggest sales weekend ever in the history of the company on a magnitude multiple. And for us, it's really important that we try to speak to people and use the information and the data of like the signups and then not barrage people, and so that it still feels special. But we're trying to actually use that data to find the moments that people are most likely to buy, the occasions. Like if we know there's like a birthday or if there's a holiday, that's kind of where we find that we're like trying to like use the kind of the data on traffic and signups to inform future launches, and then we plan out the year basically saying we think this is what our capacity is, this is what the supply should be, and this is what we think sales will realistically be. But it's a fine line because it's really like it's an exercise in supply and demand at the end of the day, and our goal is to have obviously as much supply as we can so that we can meet the demand, but like not go too far that we're exceeding it, that then it kind of loses that like covetability and excitement. And so it's a kind of an interesting like conundrum as we've been like scaling.
Because you have some pretty outrageous drops for the cookies. What are some of the weirder names and drops that you guys have done in terms of flavors?
We're in Florida, so we have a cookie that's a key lime pie cookie, and the cookie's called Florida Man. And all of our cookies have like pretty like in-depth stories on the backs. And basically it's just like every funny headline we could find, Florida Man like wrestles gator in parking lot of Kroger, you know? And so that's like a cookie. We have like our chocolate chip is called Better Than Sex, which really sets up nicely for a lot of really fun Instagram content between couples and like reposting. And so I would say push it like a more traditional brand can't, with you know, probably a little too much cursing, pushing the names a little bit, and yeah, it makes it, I think, really fun.
I think the ominous Trent Reznor soundtrack from The Social Network in the background makes me not trust you right now. But I think that's the music. All right, we only have time for a few more questions. So Gina, this would be a good time to take a picture. You're the CEO of this amazing new company. Well, it's not a very crowded room, so we could do it. You're the CEO of this amazing company. What's keeping you up at night?
I think the thing that's keeping me up at night the most is more on the speed at which the brand has grown. And it's really difficult for people to keep up with that speed, myself included. Is that like, have brands when they go from like 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. It takes different types of people, different marketers, different organization, different levels of being scrappy. And the hard part for us has been that in 18 months, we've grown from like 0 to being, I think, a contender in the space for cookies. And we have one person doing social media, and we just hired our second. Like, we don't have anyone, you know, the team is very small. And I think that my goal is that these same like all-stars are able to grow as fast with the company as the company's growing and not get outpaced, myself included. And so it's like a fine balance. That's what I think about a lot, is how can we continue to like upskill the org so that we can keep pushing it forward as fast as the momentum will allow us without having us hold it back.
As a serial entrepreneur, and you know, I've talked to a lot of people, maybe it's about Miami, a lot of people have desires to start their own company or go off on their own. What would be one advice you'd give everybody who's thinking about launching their own company or brand? What would you recommend?
I mean, I don't know. Buckle up. I think like the big thing is like conviction is if it's not so clear that you have product market fit, I think that, and there's easy ways to like test that. I think too many entrepreneurs do things that don't really have product market fit, myself included.
Okay.
And I think that trying to find ways to prove that there's actually a market for the product or the service or what you're looking to do before you like go all in is, I think, very, very important, because I think oftentimes people dive into things that people don't really want. or there isn't a huge need for, and it becomes much more of a struggle. And like some advice that I got and I felt is that when it works and there's product market fit, it works. Like it feels like it's working. It doesn't feel like you're running into like a wall every single day. And I think it's like really important. And the advice I give like early entrepreneurs is like, if it feels like you're running into a wall every day, you actually need to take a step back and think about why is that? Because it shouldn't feel like that. When it works, it actually feels like you're like swimming with a stream. And I think that, yeah, there's times you run into a wall, but it shouldn't be every day. And I think if you can find ways to test that before you go all in, I would recommend it.
I want to ask you about, I think we're out of time. All right. I guess we won't talk about the $1,000 box of cookies. We'll save that.
Just have to go to LIM and experience it.
Yeah.
Well, you'll just have to, everyone will just have to ask about that or find out about it on their own.
All right.
Thank you so much. This is absolutely great.
Yeah, thanks.